Before the headlines and hashtags, before the trials and the tremors, there was a boy from Owensboro, Kentucky, who wanted nothing more than to make noise. Johnny Depp grew up surrounded by chaos, a house that shook with arguments, a boy who learned that silence was just the pause before the next storm. By 12, he had his first guitar. By 16, he was playing in bars older than his hope. The music saved him, for a while. He dropped out of school, chased the dream to Florida, then Los Angeles. The plan was to make it as a musician, but fate, and a casting director, had other ideas. He walked into an audition to help a friend and walked out with a role in A Nightmare on Elm Street. A few screams, one death scene, and suddenly Hollywood wanted his face. The guitar went quiet. The noise changed shape. By 25, Johnny was the teenage revolution America wanted. 21 Jump Street made him a household name, the kind of pretty that sells perfume and rebellion. But fame always asks for something back. He hated the posters, hated the screaming crowds, hated becoming the very thing he'd once mocked, an idol. He began burning bridges the only way artists know how, publicly, beautifully, self-destructively. He smashed hotel rooms, disappeared from sets, walked out on interviews. He wasn't spoiled, he was suffocating. "I didn't want to be famous," he once said. "I just wanted to play truth." Truth, however, doesn't pay like lies. The 1990s became his masterpiece and his undoing. With Tim Burton, he created a gallery of ghosts, Edward Scissorhands, Ichabod Crane, Ed Wood. Each one strange, lonely, misunderstood, just like him. Audiences saw eccentricity. He was writing autobiography. Hollywood crowned him its dark prince. He didn't bow, he hid behind sunglasses and cigarettes, behind the illusion of mystery that only addicts and poets can afford. Money, awards, lovers, legends, he had it all, and still felt empty. When reporters asked why he kept playing broken men, he smiled. Because they don't lie to themselves. Then came the bottle. At first, a prop, something to fill the silence between takes. Then a friend. Then a weapon. Drinking dulled the noise, but it also dulled the music. He'd stay awake for days, wandering through empty hotel corridors like a ghost rehearsing for his own disappearance. The industry whispered, a tortured genius. He called it survival. By the time Pirates of the Caribbean arrived in 2003, Johnny was a paradox, the anti-star turned global franchise. Captain Jack Sparrow wasn't a performance. It was an exorcism. Swagger and slur, brilliance and chaos, all wrapped in eyeliner and improvisation. It made billions. It also trapped him again. The same man who had spent his youth running from celebrity became the engine of it. He bought islands, guitars, paintings, and peace he couldn't feel. He surrounded himself with noise, friends, fame, festivals. But when the lights went off, the loneliness was louder. He said once in an interview, "People cheer when you arrive. They cheer when you fall. Either way, they're watching." He was tired of being watched. But he didn't know how to stop being seen. By the early 2010s, Johnny Depp had everything except peace. He was 50 and still being sold as eternal youth, the pirate who never aged, the rebel who never learned. He played it well, but each premiere felt heavier, each smile rehearsed. He called the press tours the costume between the costumes. Behind closed doors, the house was quiet but not calm. The endless travel, the parties, the entourage, all of it built a wall between him and stillness. He'd sit at the piano late at night, cigarette burning, whispering melodies he never recorded. When friends asked why he didn't sleep, he said. Because dreams ask questions I can't answer. Then came love, or what looked like it. A young actress, magnetic, intelligent, intense. They met on a set drenched in artifice and fell into something even Hollywood couldn't script, passion that looked like salvation. The world watched, applauded, envied. He looked happy. He told interviewers he'd finally found peace. But those closest to him saw something else, the return of old ghosts wearing new perfume. The fights started quietly, then loudly, then everywhere. There were rumors, accusations, photos, recordings, statements, counter-statements. Each headline carved another piece from the man beneath the myth. Hollywood loves tragedy when it fits into 3 acts. But this one had no ending, only escalation. The studios grew nervous. Insurance clauses. Cancelled deals. Late calls. Too much noise for too much risk. He tried to hide behind work again. More films, more characters, more escape routes. But addiction and despair share the same exit door. The bottles came back. So did the insomnia. Some nights he'd play guitar until dawn, other nights he'd throw it across the room. A friend described it simply. He was trying to turn guilt into art. When the lawsuits began, the world divided. Strangers became juries. Fans became soldiers. Social media turned pain into spectacle. Every word, every photo, every tremor of emotion replayed, recut, weaponized. He tried to joke through it at first, old pirate reflexes, but humor doesn't survive cross-examination. He lost weight, lost roles, lost friends who couldn't stand the noise. He started sketching portraits of his own hands, rough, trembling lines that looked more like maps than drawings. When someone asked what they meant, he said, "They remind me I'm still here." In the middle of the storm, he did something strange. He toured. Music again, guitars, smoke, and sound louder than thought. On stage he looked alive, but backstage he moved like a man walking through ash. Between songs he'd whisper, "You can't cancel the blues." The audience screamed. He smiled. But the eyes were tired. The trial came, the cameras followed, and the world fed. He sat in that courtroom, not as a movie star, but as a mirror for 1,000,000 strangers projecting their own heartbreak. For once he wasn't acting. He was enduring. When the verdicts and statements finally ended, there was no victory. Just silence. He left the courthouse, bowed his head, and disappeared. Not to an island this time, to somewhere smaller, quieter, less cinematic. A house with no press gate. A studio with no crew. A life with no script. And for the first time in 40 years, Johnny Depp began to ask the one question he'd spent a lifetime drowning out. Who am I when nobody's watching? After the courtrooms and the cameras, Johnny Depp vanished. No red carpets, no statements, no premieres. Just a plane ticket to Europe, a few guitars, a typewriter, and the kind of exhaustion that lives in your bones. He called it exile. But it wasn't punishment. It was survival. He rented a house near the river in the French countryside, not far from the vineyard he once owned. The locals saw him sometimes, unshaven, cigarette dangling, buying bread at the market like anyone else. They whispered but never asked for photos. He was no longer the spectacle. He was the shadow behind it. The days began to blend. Wake late, paint, write, play guitar, sleep, repeat. He painted obsessively, faces melting into smoke, eyes too large for their heads, half-finished portraits of musicians he loved, Dylan, Keith, Marlon. Ghosts, he called them. They visit when I'm quiet enough to hear them. Some nights he played old blues records until dawn, letting the static fill the house like company. Other nights he sat outside in the dark, staring at his reflection in the river, whispering, "You're still here, old man. Still here." The phone stayed silent for months. No scripts. No producers. No lawyers. The industry had moved on, as it always does. He thought it would kill him. Instead, it began to heal him. Without the spotlight, he rediscovered time, real time, the kind that doesn't need applause. He began writing letters he never sent, to his children, to directors who saved him, to those who didn't. One reads simply, "If I ever made you believe I was fine, I'm sorry." In the isolation, he met an old French painter, a recluse who'd once known fame and fled from it. They talked for hours about art, regret, and the strange addiction of being seen. The man told him, "Fame is like wine. It ferments into poison if you drink it alone." Johnny nodded. He'd been drunk on it for decades. He began painting not for sale, not for galleries, but as confession. Every brushstroke felt like an apology he didn't know how to speak aloud. The walls of his studio filled with canvases, self-portraits where the eyes blurred out, as if even he wasn't sure who was looking back. The solitude softened him. He started walking daily. No entourage, no cameras. Locals noticed he smiled more. Children waved. He waved back. He began to eat again, sleep again, laugh again. The bottle gathered dust. When a friend visited from Los Angeles and asked if he'd ever return, Johnny grinned. "Return where?" "The circus. I already bought the ticket. I just don't need the ride anymore." Still, the ghosts lingered. You don't outrun 40 years of noise. You learn to let it echo without answering. He'd wake sometimes before dawn, startled by silence, expecting applause, realizing he didn't miss it. The applause had been the drug. The silence was the detox. He told one journalist much later, "It's strange. I spent my life pretending to be other people, and the hardest thing I've ever done is just be Johnny." He wasn't chasing redemption anymore. He was chasing balance. He started producing indie films for young directors, musicians, and outsiders, the kinds of people he once was. He didn't demand credit. He didn't need it. The quiet was enough. And in that quiet, he found something he hadn't felt since the bar gigs of his youth. Peace disguised as imperfection. By 2024, the rumor began, Depp's back. Not the swaggering pirate or the tabloid phantom, a quieter apparition, slipping through side doors of small music venues. Fans thought it was myth until the first grainy video appeared online. Johnny on stage in Paris, hat low, guitar slung too low, eyes closed. He didn't speak. He just played. 3 chords, 1 broken voice, a lifetime behind every note. The crowd didn't scream. They listened. He smiled, a small, real smile, and said into the mic, "It's good to hear you breathing." Music became his language again. He toured tiny clubs across Europe with friends who weren't famous enough to care who he used to be. No pyrotechnics, no press passes, no handlers. Between songs he told stories, half jokes, half confessions, about the old days when he mistook applause for affection. "They clap because you make them feel," he said once, "and not because they know you." The audience laughed softly, and for the first time, so did he. Film followed naturally. A small art house production asked him to play a washed-up writer who can't tell if the ghosts he sees are real or regret. He read the script and whispered, "That's me." He didn't play the role, he inhabited it. No makeup, no polish. The performance felt less like acting than surrender. Critics called it a haunting, a surprisingly tender, the quiet resurrection of Johnny Depp. He didn't read the reviews. He'd stopped needing permission to exist. Back home in France, the studio walls once filled with self-portraits now bore landscapes, fields, fog, sunlight over broken windows. The colors were warmer. He painted while listening to old blues, singing under his breath. Visitors noticed something different. He didn't apologize for the mess anymore. He let it live. When an interviewer asked what changed, he said, "I stopped editing my pain. Turns out it paints better uncut." He began showing up again, not as a headline but as a collaborator. Recording tracks with younger artists, donating art to children's hospitals, funding small-town theatres that reminded him of the ones that saved him as a kid. Each gesture quiet, deliberate, private. No cameras, no statement pieces. Just work. Friends say he's softer now. He listens more than he talks. He forgives faster. He still drinks coffee like whiskey and still laughs like a man who survived himself. One night after a show in Prague, a fan shouted, "Oh, we missed you, Johnny." He leaned into the mic and said, "I missed me too." The crowd went silent. Then applause, not adoration, but understanding. It sounded different this time. It sounded earned. He calls his new home the Quiet Room. It isn't a mansion. Just a stone house filled with guitars, paint, and light. Sometimes he still wakes from dreams of courtrooms and cameras, heart racing. He steps outside, feels the night air, and whispers, "Still here." The ghost came back, yes, but only to prove he was alive. By 2025, the noise had finally gone. The headlines that once fed on him had turned their teeth elsewhere. For the first time in 40 years, Johnny Depp belonged only to himself. He still worked, but quietly, a voiceover here, a cameo there, a painting exhibition under a pseudonym that few recognized. He said anonymity was the greatest award he'd never won. When no one expects you to sparkle, he told a friend, you get to shine in peace. The vineyard he once fled had turned green again. He'd hired locals, built studios, restored an old chapel into a music hall. Every Friday night, villagers gathered to play, fiddles, drums, laughter. No stage, no star, no hierarchy. He'd pour wine, join in on rhythm guitar, and grin when they called him Monsieur Johnny. To them, he wasn't a myth. He was the man who paid everyone in stories. He never spoke of the trials or the war of words that once defined him. When journalists tried, he smiled and said, "The truth doesn't need my commentary. It just needs time." Visitors say his house smells of turpentine and tobacco, that canvases lean against every wall, faces dissolving into color, half-finished skies. On one painting he'd written a single line across the bottom. "Forgive the mirrors." He said it was a reminder not to hate the reflections that once fed him. He still writes late at night, in longhand, on thick paper. Letters, lyrics, fragments. Sometimes to the people he's lost, sometimes to the man he used to be. One note reads, "You weren't evil. Just loud." When he travels now, it's without entourage or disguise. He moves slower, listens longer, laughs easier. At airports, strangers still stop him, unsure if they should speak. He nods, gentle. If they ask for a photo, he obliges, but always adds, "Don't forget to live after you take it." He once told a journalist that fame was like fire. It can cook your dinner or burn your house down, depends how long you stare at it. He no longer stares. He tends it, carefully, a candle instead of a blaze. In public, he looks weathered but clear-eyed. The eyeliner is gone, but the mischief remains. He still wears too many rings, still talks like a poet with a hangover, still laughs from the chest. But the chaos is quieter now, a hum instead of a howl. Last summer he recorded a small EP, 5 songs about loss, mercy, and the price of pretending. He released it without promotion, under a single line of credit, for anyone who survived being loved in public. It charted nowhere. He called it his proudest work. Music, fade to a single guitar note. The legend didn't end in flames or triumph. It simply settled into rhythm, brush against strings, paint against canvas, breath against air. The man who once mistook applause for love finally learned the quiet truth. Love doesn't roar. It stays. And somewhere in the south of France, as the sun drops behind the vines, a man who once belonged to the world lights another cigarette, picks up his guitar, and smiles into the dusk. Not because they're watching, but because, at last, they're not.